Hey guys, thanks so much for joining. This is our B2B Marketing Meters meetup. I've done one of these before, but I'm really excited to share the story that we have for you guys today. My guest speaker is Lisa Cole. She's the CMO of Cellebrite, and I posted a little intro, get to know video for you guys. But if you haven't seen that video, what Lisa's going to share today, and I'm excited for you guys to kind of get in and see her methodology, is what she accomplished at her last role as CMO of FARO. And this was a roadmap and a presentation that she shared at the 2022 Forrester Summit keynote because her team won the 2022 Forrester Return on Integration Award. So it's exciting that she has a lot of this experience to share. It's even more exciting to me that she has a 10-phased approach that makes it not easier, but at least you can see the pathway of what it takes to kind of align all the troops to revenue. She has I'd say a reputation for turning marketing's function from just order taking and kind of doing the next thing to really being a part of the revenue team. And so this presentation and the experience that led up to this award was FARO driving 7x conversion, 2x velocity, 2x revenue impact with 30% less spend. And I think that's really key for where we all are right now with budgets. How do you do more with less, and how do you gain so much conversion with kind of working with what you have to work with? And so she's going to kind of lift the curtain and share with you guys some of the things that she did. But beyond this presentation that she gave and this roadmap, she'll go into her history, I'm sure, but she is also awarded the 2018 B2B Innovator Award. She was the 2018 Serious Decision ROI Award. And she is an author of the book, The Revenue Ramp, which is out for purchase. It's really great. It goes into her methodology and her roadmap, and it's how to jumpstart your demand engine to accelerate revenue. So she's got just a lot of wealth to share, and she's a great person. And I've had the fortune of really growing up in my career with her, both as peers, as client and agency partnership. And she really is a beautiful person inside and out, and a great leader. So I'll hand it over to Lisa and let her take it away. Sorry for such the large introduction, but wanted you guys to get a good feel for her. Okay. Wow. Hi, Lisa.
Well, hi, everyone. First off, thank you for the incredibly kind introduction, even though it was lengthy, but nonetheless, I'm honored to be here. There are so many of you here that I have been kind of watching and listening to for some time. So to be in this group and to be, given this opportunity is an honor for me. As for Heather, Heather and I actually had the opportunity to work together at Bulldog Solutions back in 2010. I was a marketing strategist on her team, and I learned a lot from her. And so I would put that out there. It wasn't necessarily, I feel it was the other way. I learned from her, continued to grow in my agency background, had been a CMO advisor basically for 16 years. And then I got a little tired of being on the agency side because you do all this hard work and you don't get to own the outcomes. And you don't get to stick around for the party after. And I decided, okay, let me actually take what I've learned through the years, both the good and bad. Let me go to the client side. And my first CMO position was at a company called Huron Consulting Group. Heather had talked a little bit about, she referenced the Serious Decisions ROI Award. That's the first transformation that I applied this framework to, which the easiest way to describe it is, yes, I used a lot of Serious Decisions and Forrester's frameworks, but there's a ton of them. There's hundreds of them. This is meant to kind of stitch those together to solve one problem. How do you accelerate revenue growth? And so it really actually brings a number of frameworks together that are not mine. but the way that they're synthesized and the order of operations is where the secret lies. I had the pleasure of being on that team through a fairly significant business transformation. I learned some lessons from that, I had a chance for a do-over. And so I went to the FARO Technologies organization where they were experiencing similar challenges and applied the same framework. But this time I tweaked it, knowing the challenges I had the first time. And of course, this story I'm going to share with you today is that work. I have since, and it was quite intentional, that business transformations was established for a 3.5-year roadmap for the collective company, at which point pieces of the business would be spun off and I would look for my next adventure. Apparently, I like doing this over and over again. And so now I am the CMO of Cellebrite, where they're experiencing a very similar challenge to the one I'm going to share with you today from FARO. Since working with Heather and team back in 2010, I have learned to keep your really smart agencies and your agency partners in your world forever. You hold on to them. And so I've had an opportunity to work with her and the team at Demand Frontier multiple times since then, whether that is to bring a skill set that me or my team don't have, or capacity so we can accelerate this work. And so I'm grateful that I've had her support through the years. Okay, Heather, do you want me to start sharing? Is there anything else you'd like to do?
Jump into it. No, I think that's a great prelude to what we can share. Let's jump into it. I think we kind of did the introduction, so we can jump right into the good stuff.
Okay. And for the record, happy to share this with you on the other side. I would rather it not be me speaking and doing death by PowerPoint for the next 45 minutes, but nonetheless, feel free to just ask questions along the way, and I'll do my best to really focus in on what's most valuable to you. This presentation, it was really just to say, hey, look, you've picked the right session to attend if you're feeling any of these things, right? You're under a tremendous amount of pressure as a marketing leader to help sales drive revenue growth. You likely are being pushed to generate somehow more leads to fuel a weakened sales pipeline or to hit more aggressive growth targets. You might already be generating a ton of marketing leads already, and you and every member of your team know that they are being dropped, mishandled, or ignored altogether. And yet somehow you're still being asked to deliver more. It doesn't make any sense. And then finally, look, you can't do more, right? Through the pandemic, we found ourselves having to figure out how to do more with significantly less. You have no more to give. And you may even be in a position where you can't even prove the impact of what you are delivering. So how do you actually increase your impact and then prove it so that you can get out of this spiraling situation of losing funding or always under this budget pressure? Now, FARO Technologies, when I joined the company, was genuinely at this inflection point. The business had over 40 years. It was in an established market. At one point, it was a market leader. The basic technology that they brought forward was a 3D scanning digitization technology that's used in either manufacturing plants for quality control, public safety for crime scene investigations, and construction. But the scanning technology, again, had been commoditized, and they were struggling to grow. If you looked at the history, the revenue performance had slowed, and they were struggling to meet their numbers. At the same time, they had grown, and they had explosive growth. And the way they had grown before was let's just hire more salespeople. And their cost of sales had skyrocketed. They were definitely in a position where if they didn't do something differently, the business would be in real trouble. And so at that inflection point, we made a decision that we were going to transform the business and reposition it in the market from the product manufacturer of a scanner to a company that cares less about the production of the scanner and more about helping you surface actionable insights from the data. And that's a big shift. You're talking to totally different buyer personas, and you've got to reach those audiences in different times. That was a big challenge, one that's oftentimes supported with more spend, not less spend. Anyway, so this was the actual challenge. Let's go ahead and shift from being a product-centric company to a market-led solution provider that's focused on surfacing actionable insights. When I joined, I accepted the job. Before I actually started, I got an email from the CFO who said, "Hey, I know we talked to you a little bit about being smarter with your dollars. What that really means is right out of the gate, you're going to take $5 million out of the marketing budget." And I thought, how big's the marketing budget? I can't even believe I didn't surface that in the interview. And it had been $16 million a year. We had 4 distinct brands to manage and maintain. What I found in 2019 is that they had somehow managed to attend and exhibit at 716 events. There were 257 websites around the world in 9 different languages. There were 66 social channels. For the love of all this holy, they were so addicted to email. It was extraordinary to me. And even though they did all these things and were generating, I think, nearly 30,000 leads per year, less than 1.4% of leads ever resulted in a sale of any form, whether that would be for an accessory or a $50,000 scanner. This was an ugly picture, right? And to say that I somehow was going to have to take $5 million out of a $16 million budget was just, let's just say it was intimidating. When you look at a company that's this addicted to events, how do I take that money out without basically upsetting everyone? And so I figured, this thing's probably going to start with a business case for change. And so I basically said, what if I could invest your dollars in a way that's smarter, that dramatically impacts demand conversion rates from the moment someone raises their hand to the moment they buy something from us. And I can accelerate the actual purchasing process, being smarter again about enabling those decision making. I bet you I could give you a better return on investment. And so I had put this out there and put the challenge. And of course, everybody was like, yeah, sign me up. And then I basically told them what was going to have to change, including playing whack-a-mole with the 716 events. It was like, we're going to have to stop being siloed. We're going to have to stop being decentralized. No more fragmentation in the way that we go to market. Stop with the disparate, disjointed marketing efforts. We are confusing the market, and we're going to stop that. And they basically said, here's the roadmap for what we're going to do. We're going to build a revenue ramp for the company to grow. And on the left, I had gotten used to this using what are we trying to escape from and what do we want to arrive to? Not my strategy, but it worked. And it basically had painted a picture that said, these are all the things, the pains that we feel today. Does everyone agree with it? Yes. Great. Awesome. On the right, this is what we're going to work to go to. And in the middle are the 4 phases we're going to work in, which would mean it starts with this review of the maturity of our marketing and sales processes. So it's not just a marketing problem. This is the collective go-to-market engine that was an issue. I then would take that information and I would come in and get alignment for what changes need to be made, specifically what were we going to do in what order. And then from there, we were going to collectively work together, which included marketing, sales, our IT function, finance. A number of these groups come together to fix the leaks in our lead to revenue pipeline. And then from there, only once the leaks are fixed, then we'll go ahead and add the fuel back into the engine and it'll take off. And if we do all that right, on the right is what we would experience. And so improve conversion and velocity and overall better customer experience. And people have thought, okay, let's give it a shot. Now, let me tell you when this started. This business case was published. I joined the company in October of 2019. What happened in March 16th of 2020? Anyone know? The world shut down, right? Quite literally shut down. And that overnight, what we thought was an amazing game plan suddenly became like nearly impossible. But what I did want to put out there was it also offered a weird silver lining, because one of the big things I had to do was to create enough space, both in the budget and in my team's capacity, to do things differently. Whether it would be to address the gaps in our infrastructure, address the gaps in our data, to stop being consumed by all of these events and all the activities that goes with the events, and start being more programmatic in their programs. Overnight, our entire event calendar was taken out in one fell swoop. It's a weird coincidence. And again, there was nothing you can say that's positive about a pandemic, but you can at least say it shocked the company into action. Like, okay, well, we can't do any of these things anymore. What can we do differently? Now, that was the positive side. The negative side was immediately overnight, 30%, I think it was about 30% of our revenue just disappeared overnight. Like, it was a dramatic decline, because what we were selling was considered to be a capital expense. And the industries we were in were manufacturing and construction. Nobody was in a car plant and nobody was on a construction site just overnight. Nobody was building anything. And so then the pressure was, get there faster, Lisa. That was it. It was whatever you were planning on doing, great, you now have the runway. I want it next quarter versus, a year and a half from now. So we leaned in, and we did. This is where the support of Demand Frontier and a few other, let's say, technology providers had rolled up their sleeves with us to help us accelerate this work. But we still believe that the roadmap made sense. We just made it happen faster. And so what I thought I would share with you are the details of that roadmap. Before I go on, any questions so far? No? Okay.
Lisa, quick one. You showed when you first joined, you showed some of the targets that you built in, which included 3x, the conversion, etc. How did you even get to that? So what was your thought process when you were like, oh, I will increase the business 3x based on these things? Would you be able to share that?
Great question. So the first thing was I had gone out and benchmarked our current state. And so I knew from the moment a lead was surfaced, from an engaged party was identified, all the way through to a sale, what were the critical conversion points from one stage to the next, and then what was that velocity? Admittedly, there was some gaps in that benchmark data because they had an overly simplified view of the demand funnel, and this is where I brought in Forrester to complete that benchmarking effort. They have a database, I think they call it Command and Control. I'm not sure what that database is, but it contains hundreds of organizations, and you can select and organize your peer set, both on your revenue, your industry, who and what the nature of what you're selling. And it will provide you with some of the data points that you could input as a proxy to set this stage. And so that's how I addressed that singular gap I was missing.
Yeah,
Okay.
and they come out with that benchmark every year. Yeah.
It's also maintained real time as well. So if you are a Forrester customer, you can log into your command control panel and you can input these data points, and it will surface recommendations based on what they're getting from other customers. Right.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
There's also some industry averages that are known as well, I would say.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. There are a number, even Forrester publishes, maybe the aggregate conversion across a B2B lead to revenue pipeline. So you can still surface that. The subscription gets you to go in and actually dig into the details of the 10 or so peers that look just like your company that are selling to the same audience with a similar, investment level. So I can circle back to you on that. They do tend to post it in their blogs, which is interesting. And they have lots of webinars that they publish, but we can surface. There's a question in the chat.
Yeah, I'll definitely hunt that down and share it with the group.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
Directionally. Oh, sure. Go ahead.
On the transformation blueprint, I apologize if you mentioned it already. What did you propose as the time frame for this transformation journey? 12 months, 18
original-
months?
18 months was the original
18.
with, now keep in mind, so when you look at this screen right now, the first phase, that review phase, was to be done in under 60 days. Then it was, how do you get aligned? And I believe that was a 45-day window. The mobilize was about 6 months. And the reason for that is there are a number of levers that we had to pull. So for example, we had lead management processes that were fundamentally broken, right? We didn't have a lead assignment engine. There were no notifications. There was no way to track a lead to have true, reliable end-to-end visibility. In addition to that, we had a flawed marketing automation platform that didn't allow things for scoring. There were a few things that we had to fix. So that was the longest period. The Propel was, and we'll get to this piece, but those were the rise of ABM programs and intent monitoring and sales enablement programs. And so you start to see that's the long tail. And my 18-month commitment was 18 months from now, these leaks are fixed, but we're also marketing in a way that is far more audience-centric, programmatic in nature, leverages intent so that we're targeting, actively buying. And oh, by the way, in addition to making sure we're giving better quality, potential opportunities to sales is also better prepared to do something with it. And so it's that whole roadmap. We were told to get there faster. And so this was in March, heading into January, this was all deployed. And so we cut about 5 months off of that timeline because we had the air cover of the pandemic for the first 2 quarters. So we were able to be a little bit more disruptive than I think a marketer might be able to be today. I would bet 18 months now. Okay. All right.
Lisa,
Yes.
another question about your transformation. You had mentioned in one of your YouTube videos about how your marketing leadership role changed. How you originally thought it was about clicks, about driving sales, and how it became about stakeholder management, leading your team through disruptive changes, and focusing on developing new people. So knowing you were going into an organization that was heavy on events, okay, COVID sort of challenge, but you were still heavy on email. How did you lead through transformation and disruptive change in an organization that was very much stuck in this is the way we did it? And what sort of roadmaps and communication did you build around this transformation over those 12 to 18 months?
Great question. As it relates to FARO specifically, what was happening broadly at the enterprise level is that there was a restructuring. And so where we had 4 business units, when I was talking about consolidation, alignment, and eliminating disparate silos, those things, that was happening more broadly. And through that restructuring, I also I had the opportunity to restructure my organization then. And that restructuring accomplished a couple of things. The first was it did move people into the roles of the future, right? And so if you were someone that was an email specialist and you had a potential to become a campaign manager, or you had the opportunity to learn account-based marketing practices, we moved individuals into the roles that they had the potential to grow into right from the start. And then, of course, had supported them with Forrester training and development. They have accelerated learning tracks. The second, I was asked to take $5 million out, and that wasn't just in events. Part of it, the dual challenge was I needed to be more flexible. And so I did have a reduction in force right out of the gate. The roles that I eliminated were admittedly basically either those that were underperforming or did not have the skill set related to the work, the scope of the types of marketing strategies we'd be implementing in the future. And so you saw a significant shift from a large team that was either event management related, not event marketers. Those logistic related event managers that were not interested in and different types of experiences, let's say webinars or virtual events. I also had a tremendous, very, very large production team of creative designers that had really that weren't necessarily interested in pivoting how they work. So I had some roles and I cut in those places that would not align to the types of work we'd be doing in the future. When that happened, it signaled a shift that we were serious about changing the way that we market. And in a few moments, I'm going to talk about some of the things that we did to change people's perceptions. And you might, if you watch that video, you might have heard me that I went looking for a wall of shame, and that I had posted a wall of shame and said, this represents the type of marketing we will not go back to. And that's how I started managing the change. But I did have a restructuring. I did invest in training development. And then I published the world's scariest wall of shame, and then produced a video that I could share with the broader population to tell the story about how marketing's own behaviors had created this wall of shame, which visualized what it was like to be a customer of ours. And it was not good. All those things helped to kind of change people's mindsets. I would say that that's how we managed through it. It was not easy. Anyway, does that help?
Very much so. Thank you.
And I'm happy to share, I've now used the wall of shame thing 3 times here on FARO and Cellebrite. And I have to say, every time, equally as effective. It not only wakes the marketers up, it actually gets the rest of the organization to be more accepting of marketing showing up in a different way. So, okay. Should I go on? We good? Okay. So really just looking across these phases, just at a high level, it really started with how do we actually just common sense, how do we prevent waste? How do we close up leaks? Then how do we change the way that we market? And so I'm just going to go through these 9 phases, and I'll share the high level. I'm not going to drill into too much of the detail. But I will highlight where some of the real actionable strategies that have been super effective for me that I repeat every single time now. The first phase is just how do you prevent waste? Just full on waste. And here it's you're looking for all the sources of leaks online and offline. For example, you might on your website have lots of places where you surface an email and you allow someone that's interested to email a direct address. Or you might have web forms that go to nowhere, black holes, somebody that's left the company and it doesn't get added to your CRM. You might have phone numbers that go to voicemails that don't accept voicemails. There's just some obvious waste that you can close up. I do have what I call a secret shopping checklist. When in doubt, go look and experience it for yourself. And so you secret shop yourself and you complete this report. Happy to share with you that checklist, but it includes all of those places where you're likely just completely dropping leads, and it's not because of a salesperson who's ignored it. And so you just look for the leaks. And then of course, you take that, you document those findings and you share it with the organization. Even if it feels like you're sharing all of the warts, you're basically saying, look, we're wasting a lot. Let me at least just stop the waste and give me the opportunity to do that. Phase 2 was how do you gain buy-in? And this kind of hits on your question, Cynthia. What are some of the things that I did to shift the organization's mindset from a quantity of doing things, whether that's 716 events, a tremendous number of email. I won't go into that number. And it was, you look for evidence that the marketing strategies, your behaviors are delivering bad customer experiences, and then you document it. And then from there, once you shine a light on it, then you get the support for how you're going to shift from quantity to quality. The phase 3 is focusing on how do you get marketing and sales aligned. There's 20 years of documentation of how to get marketing and sales on the same page. I am definitely not the first one, and I won't be the last one that tells you that this is important. What I can offer to you, though, is I'm not so sure that others have just been as pragmatic as I might be, where I quite literally, I will survey all the marketers and salespeople the same set of questions that talk about how well do we communicate with each other? What are the metrics that matter? Do you know what it is that marketing does? Do you know what sales does? And I share that with each other and I say, look at these. These are the areas where we agree that things are not working the way they should. These are the areas where we have wildly different perceptions of how this is playing out. Like, for example, the reporting that we provide. We might think that marketing is providing really valuable reporting to the business and to the sales organization about the impact of our work. They may not actually share the opinion. And so I start with a survey. I collect that and I commit to saying, I am going to work on this particular area where we are misaligned. From there, I do, I get buy-in. Usually what's surfaced there is that the definition of what a qualified sales-ready lead is not the same. If you would ask a marketer what that looks like, they will usually give you a long list of bullet points and say, it's all these things. And then you turn to sales and sales, if they have the bullet points, they will likely describe a picture that doesn't sound like the marketing thing. And so that's when I go into this next phase. And this is where I then dig into the how across that lead life cycle, the who does what, and I just document it. And I, from there say, okay, you said this is where we're not really aligned. And these are the areas where we're not very mature. And I'm happy to share this survey as well. This is what I would suggest is the order of operations where we'll have the biggest impact if we just fix this. For example, one of the things that might surface in it is we don't have an aligned definition of what a lead is and who does what along that lead life cycle. Great. We're going to tackle that first, and then I'll fix the rest of the stuff. Communicate that, and then you go into the actual alignment work. And this is where I will conduct a series of workshops. The workshops are super simple. It's basically this. What does the right organization profile look like for you? What is the right profile of a person or a buying influencer? And then I have 11 questions that I ask. I just list it. Is this a lead? Is this a lead? Is this a lead? And those are 11 questions about the 11 behaviors someone might exhibit that indicates interest or sales readiness. And it's a Zoom call. I deploy the question, they hit the poll. If I get the majority, that is the answer. For example, one of the 11 questions is, if someone visits our booth but does not express interest in talking to a salesperson, is that a lead? Yes or no? And the 11 questions start from like the most obvious, that's clearly not a lead, to the holy cow, if you dare say this isn't a lead, there's something wrong. So for example, if someone visits our website but doesn't complete a form, but my technology tells me who they are, do you think that's a lead? If I get anyone that says yes to that, I'll ask why, but then I will tell them lovingly that 110,000 unique visitors came to my site last month. There are 30 of you. Who is pursuing that, right? The 11th one is they literally beg to talk to you in a web form. Is that a lead? I get those 11 answers. I put it in a contract, me and the head of sales, and I also include the head of product. We sign it. And then I partner with IT. Yes, I partner with IT. So the two awards for Huron and FARO, if you look closely at the photos of the team awards and the speeches themselves, it's me and the head of IT presenting.
That's so smart.
It was, it's an interesting piece. I spent a career listening to marketers that talk about how do we work around IT, and I get it. Not easy. But I can say I don't know how you fix some of the leakage problems if you don't have a really strong partner in IT. You need it in sales for sure, right? To effectively accelerate revenue. But if you want to eliminate waste, you absolutely need your IT partner. And the other piece is my HR partner is critical as well. So that here on award on the stage, it was me, the chief people officer, the chief IT. Okay, so turning theory into reality, this is the MIS work. I would offer to you that this is the one I've learned the really hard way through the years. And this is the critical one that very few marketers know how to take an SLA and then fix the system. This is it. First, you sit down with IT, you have a business analyst, and you say, this is what sales says they need to effectively manage the leads I give them. And this is, what does that translate to for technical implications? Like, what do we have to fix? And then we document it. They then give it to their developers. They come back and say, this is the sprint and how we're going to tackle these over the sprints. While they're doing that, the marketers then come up with a data plan to address the gaps in the data that would make it easier for you to actually fulfill the SLA. For example, they might say, I refuse to consider something a lead unless we have both a phone and an email address, or unless we have industry related information or a title, or I know it could be some attribute that matters the most. In my world, it's whether or not they're at an agency, that's a particular size. Chances are you may not have that data. And so as a marketer, you have to go figure out, how do I enrich my record so that I can actually give them only the things that they're asking for without manual intervention. Sometimes I would offer that website might be managed entirely within your function, might be managed by IT. Regardless of where that goes, someone go and audit your web forms to make sure that you're able to capture the required information or enrich it behind the scenes to be able to identify and surface what is worthy of sales pursuit and pass it on. So someone go and check out your web forms, make sure that it works. Then you support IT with user testing. They're going to make changes somewhere, whether that's in your CRM, it could be that within the marketing automation platform, could be related to the passing of data from one technology to the next. They need help with user testing. So offer the support of your team with that. And then from there, conduct training. The training is both for marketers, for sales, and likely for key stakeholders and the supporting functions in between. Here is how we now manage the demand that we create. And then you go live. Any questions on this phase? Is this valuable? I can
Yes.
accelerate. Okay. All right. So now you fixed it, right? So you've gotten alignment with sales. Marketers know that they need to behave and market differently. You've got MIS that helps you fix the infrastructure, the plumbing of your ecosystem. Now you need to jumpstart it. And this is what was really valuable during the pandemic. And the reason why I published that book was I was talking to so many marketing leaders that said, effective today, I don't have any additional marketing dollars for the rest of the year. All my funds are caught up in it with exhibitors who had to cancel or delay their events. I can't get it back. And there's no new money coming, yet somehow they've just increased my targets that I need to hit because the company is in this spiral. I thought, well, I don't know about you, but I probably have a lot of hidden demand somewhere in my database or in our pipeline that we could probably go and recycle very quickly without incremental spend to jumpstart the situation. And so what you see here on the screen are the places I go looking for it. But before I do that, I let the sales organization know I'm going to do that. So, hey, at some point in time, someone engaged with us, we passed it on, something happened. It doesn't mean it's anyone's fault. It could be that they ghosted us. But let me go and check back in with them and see if there's any interest that remains there. Let's try to recycle it. And so I start with the leads that are not yet distributed to sales. Is there anything I can do there to accelerate or inspire or motivate them to say they want to talk to sales? They've already engaged with us. This is just kind of that nudge. What's a high value offer that would do that? I then go back and I talk to either SDRs or the sales organization. Tell me who you couldn't reach. I passed it to you. You genuinely tried to reach it. Let's actually take those we couldn't reach and let's attempt to reinvigorate what feels like it's stalled or unreachable. Let me get aggressive with trying to reach them for you. And there are certain strategies. There are even ways you can reach out to survey that position it like, at some point in time you express interest. I would like to make sure your experience with us was everything you needed and you got what you needed. And that can jumpstart it. There are leads we lost. We could have lost it because of a budget reason. We could have lost it because they went to the competition, but we all know sometimes people change, like they regret their decisions. And if you go back to them and continue to show them the love, they might be interested in talking with you again. And then before I turn that on and start sending them this recycled stuff, I make sure they know how to handle the recycled stuff. It's likely not the same selling conversation they would have had before. And so you make sure they know what that person did before, what it is that you did to get them to re-engage, and then help them understand their messaging. Their approach should include an acknowledgement of what they engaged with before. And you turn it on. And this here is usually enough. You'll start to see a fairly significant uptick in that upcoming quarter, which then gives you enough runway, and likely some additional funding to then go and pour more fuel onto the fire. But this piece was super helpful when we didn't have anything else to go and get. There's a question.
Before you move on from that, to me, this is so important because every CMO that I talk to is lacking the budget to really focus on net new pipeline and net new conversations. You're doing that, but you're really doubling down on mid-funnel and lower funnel strategies to go after the customer, these low-hanging fruit opportunities that, may be in the database that you're not realizing. What you lay out here as this kind of 7-phase treasure hunt, if you will, that
It was.
Right. I think this
Yeah,
is something that everybody could put into practice as a way to kind of think about your budget and what can you do without having big budgets.
There's a question in chat about how big the post-riff was. Admittedly, at the time, because we had 4 business units and everyone had their own marketers, there were more than 60 marketers in the organization. Many of them duplicative roles. Many of them focus on events management. The initial riff brought my team down to 25. It was deep. Now, that's not all the funding I had. It was the 25 employees I felt that either had the skill or will to stay on for the next phase of the growth. And that riff happened it was actually February 1st. So it was about a month and a half before the pandemic hit us. It was deep. I left open another 10 positions to go out and get the capabilities that I needed, including things like account-based marketing practices, data scientists, sales enablement strategy, things that we just didn't have before. It was significant enough that the collective reduction in force for the company was spoken about in our earnings call. And so it was a big thing. It was big. It was not easy to manage through. Needless to say, on the other side, I needed to make a commitment to say, there are no other changes. You are my team. This is what we're doing for at least for the next 18 months. Are you on board? And here's what I will do to help develop you. But it was a shock and awe, unfortunately. Anyways, so and Natasha, Sheena, I hope that answers your question. It was hard. Yeah. Okay.
One more just thought around the concept of jump starting the engine. I feel like this is kind of when Demand Frontier started working with you to think about how while you're going through those team transformations, you're cutting your staff where needed, you're recruiting and looking for the staff that you need. Beyond just working with us, but like, what are some of the ways that, because I've seen you do this, so what are some of the ways that you can share with everyone that you're still hitting the ground running, even while you're doing all of that?
Before we went into the reduction, it was who are the vendors that we need to have in place that can either help us actually design the programs so that we consistently are in market while we manage through that disruption, because that disruption is enough to shake a team. And so I'll put that out there, that in order to make sure we had that, and that's where we engaged with Demand Frontier. And it was very specifically looking across our roadmap for the year, things like a new product launch, or we're launching a new workflow, a solution set that was meant to address a different phase of that workflow for the customer. We would take those discrete business challenges or marketing challenges, and we would work with you to develop the strategy. The other ways that I've managed through this is I am a big believer in using staff augmentation, which allows you to identify a resource that you add to your team, but that resource is there for the duration that you need that. So for example, in FARO, we implemented a marketing performance management platform. And in doing that, we augmented our staff with I guess you'd say, a short-term resource that is an expert in redesigning workflows. They had a background in optimizing workflows, and they were contracted for 6 months to help us through that piece, but they were treated like an extension of our team. When the RIF happened, I added 14 resources to my team that addressed the gaps while my team grew into the roles that they were in. So it was and that was an acceptable use of budget for the company because it's a flexible use. It's non-personnel spend. And so if 60 days into that contract of those 14 resources, the world continued to fold for us and we had to cut it, I could contractually get out of that augmentation. Or 60 days in, I realized I don't need a social media strategist. I really need a global SEO strategist. And you can move those resources around that way. So that's another way that I've managed through the disruptive change like this. And that's another model that, a Demand Frontier offers. Okay. Heather, did I miss anything?
Nope, I think you touched it. Thank you.
I know if we get to the last slide, you'll see that I was very intentional to say, before we went into that reduction, we had a stable of vendor partners in place that were aware that we were about to go through disruptive change. It would help us or support us through that disruptive change. So when the announcements were made, it was an immediate, I am not expecting you all to go from more than 60 to 25 and still keep the wheels on this bus rolling while we're going down the highway 100 miles an hour. Here are our partners that are going to solve or help us in these areas. And so that was kind of part of the way I managed. And I let the team know that either it was augmenting a skill set to a team that we do not yet have, a muscle that we don't have, or a capacity need that we just need to be able to settle into a new workflow. But that those 25 had a place with me for life, basically. Okay. Phase 8. So at this point, you jump-started your engine. You fixed all your leaks. You're not wasting, you're certainly not wasting demand like you did before. You've got alignment. This piece here is marketing invests in sales productivity. Yes, I said it. I'm taking some of my money, my budget that's limited, and I'm intentionally putting it into enabling the sales organization. There are many marketing leaders that this is a natural thing that you do. There are many other marketing leaders that say that's their job, that's their swim lane. I'm in this swim lane. I have more than enough work I need to fix on my own. But arguably, you could say you have zero shot at being successful unless the sales organization is productive. So maybe they agree that what you're sending or sharing with them is worthy of their time. But if they actually don't have what they need, either a knowledge or capability, or they simply don't have enough time to pursue it all, you're going to fail anyways. And so you're smarter upfront to say, I'm going to invest in these things because I believe I have a better shot at enabling my team to be more impactful. And so I tend to look at it in this order, but I think there are many other ways that you could invest in sales productivity. But these are all natural extensions to what we're already doing today. Whether that's packaging buyer insights and turning it into actionable sales tools like playbooks and play cards, email templates or conversational email tools for sales-driven campaigns, outreach at scale. So things like cadence tools that make it easier for them to stay on track of all the leads that you're sending to them. I invest in sales asset management tools. And so Seismic has been a consistent cornerstone in all of my tech stacks through the years. And then from there, I make sure that we measure the impact of those, not just in terms of marketing productivity. Something like Seismic makes a marketer more productive, but it also impacts sales productivity. And so upfront, before we make the investment, I make sure that we know exactly what current state is for both and publish it, and then come back and say, these investments help my team and yours. Okay. Any questions here? No? All right. So marketing productivity. The fun part, right? You come back, your team's in a better place, you're not wasting demand, everyone's aligned, they're being given a real shot to change the way they work. Just because you build it does not mean they'll actually change. So you can get all the best technologies in the world. You can get everyone in the organization to give them the runway to work through it all and to make the change. I swear to you, it does not matter how much money you spend on investing in tools for them. It does not mean they'll actually use it, which is shocking to me, but I've now experienced that 3 times. And so it tells me at the end of the day, it's just change. People resist change. It's so much easier when you're under pressure to continue to do things the way you always have. So this is the part where we go and we have very real discussions about what does random act of marketing look like and how do we stop random acts of marketing. There are lots of ways you could define it, but my simplest of where I'm at now is if you don't have a plan for what's coming next from the prospect or the audience's perspective, it's probably random. Stop it. So for example, if you're requesting to develop an asset or a piece of content that you can use as fuel for a campaign, if you do not have a promotional plan for the piece of content, like how are you going to get people to see it? It does not get invested in. If you don't have a plan for a promotion that you put out, that if somebody actually responds, if you don't have a plan with what to do with them next, it should not go out to market. And so we play whack-a-mole with random acts of marketing in this phase. We do also, that naturally leads into the what's next, leads into smarter programmatic nurturing strategies that support different stages of the buying journey, answers different questions. And then you just, then you think about some of the additional tools that you can deploy that make that smarter. Anyways. Okay, I know we're out of time. We're running out of time. We're out of it.
Let's keep going though. Let's, I think
Yeah,
they really want to see
somebody
the
asked a
tech stack.
question. Yeah, somebody asked a question about the tech stack. It's a common question. This is what we had at the end of our transformation. We'll send out the deck. You'll notice that the way it's presented is not all that innovative, but it does focus on non-tech speak for what it is that we use for what job, what marketing job, and then the results. So we did reduce marketing spend. The pandemic helped us get it in half. Improved brand loyalty. You'll see the conversion rate exceeded even our expectations. The velocity also exceeded. And then, of course, from here, the return on investment was higher. And this is where we landed.
I think that's incredible. And I think so many marketers are struggling just with even being able to measure at all, and then being able to really show
the impact. Once you've brought the entire organization along with that journey, I think
Yeah.
that's the answer, is to really get alignment from day one on what you're going to measure, what you're going to do, why it matters, and all of the buy-in along the way. I hope you guys have a lot of ideas that you can apply in your own worlds.